Thanks to our entire team that's here joining us, and to all of the military spouses from around the world joining in on this conversation. We are so excited to talk to Dr. Shanita Williams today. We've talked to her a couple times before this call, and this is one of the most exciting conversations because I'm so excited to hear about how we can unlock and unleash our full potential. And I know so many other spouses joining in are excited to hear about that today too. But Dr. Williams, I wanted to hand it over to you so that you can tell a little bit about yourself and how we can learn more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be with you guys today. I am originally from California, Northern California, and today I sit and reside in Southern New Hampshire. So, made quite a leap for our family here. I actually work for Southern New Hampshire University as the Associate Vice President of Talent Engagement and Inclusion, where I have the honor of really listening and learning about the lived experiences of our employees and how we can create and cultivate an engaged and inclusive culture. And I am a mom of three very busy, amazing little humans who are ages 5, 9, and 12. So full house. But the house is not complete without my husband of 11 years who really keeps it all together. So just so excited to meet you guys and engage in a conversation today.
Thank you very much. And so never a dull moment in your household, I'm sure. Oh, I love it. Well, if the spouses or everybody joining in with us live today could chat or put in the chat box where you're joining us from, we'd love to see where everybody having coffee with us is from around the world. We've seen already a couple all over the States, and I know we've had people registered from Germany and Japan. So excited to see where our listeners are calling in from, joining in from. And then also what we'd like to do is have you share your LinkedIn profile so that you can start those connections. And it's also the bonus of when you get to join us live, you can get this information and connect during the live conversation. So please feel free to share that and make those connections throughout this conversation, please. So Dr. Williams, fangirl here because you did a TED Talk. In 2018, you gave a TED Talk called Process Feedback with a Strainer, Not a Sponge. So that's one of my dreams would to be a TED Talk speaker or a guest or a featured guest. So can you tell us how that evolved?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm like you, just such an honor to be able to be on that TED stage
Yeah.
and just to share a part of your heart with the world was incredible. But I had been really focused on feedback for a while. I've always been focused on the human experience and really curious about how we could cultivate environments for people to be at their best. So I had already been working on a concept, and then a member of the community nominated me for the opportunity to share this idea broadly. And I got a speaker coach who really helped me like curate my idea to figure out how to package this big idea into 12 minutes in front of an entire audience. And so it was probably one of the most transformative experiences I've ever had, and just feel so honored to be able to have that opportunity.
And I feel like once you become on the list of TED Talk speakers, your life can change in a certain way. Do you feel as though, or how has your life changed since that TED Talk?
Yeah, wow. Well, it definitely changed like personally. I think the experience in and of itself of really trying to walk through the process of finding the confidence really to kind of say that, hey, my words have value and they're worth sharing. I think just the evolution and the process of going through that was transformative for me to see that, wow, I have an idea that can be shared. And then watching the audience kind of respond to it. I've actually had people reach out who shared their own personal stories about processing feedback and how they feel as though they are a sponge and they hold on to everything, and how really thinking about it differently about how to let everything in, but everything doesn't get to stay, and using, feedback as a strainer has changed their life. So for me, it's really just been great engaging in conversations with new people about their own lived experiences. And then of course, opportunities to kind of share them with other audiences as well. So it's definitely been a life-changing event for me.
Absolutely. And for people who have not watched it yet, again, it's called Process Feedback with a Strainer, Not a Sponge. Check it out. Definitely worth it. And yeah, I'm just That's why I'm a fangirl. Like I said, I watched it. I'm just like, oh, it's so good. So, so you've been in this space for quite some time now. And I know everybody, like I mentioned earlier, is wondering how exactly do you unlock and unleash your full potential, especially now when many of us are in a unknown territory, as in just with everything going on, or a lot of military spouses like myself just moved to a new location, and it's kind of like, how do I get there? So what
Yeah.
steps do we need to take? And tell us everything.
Yes, for
Please.
sure. Well, so when I think about potential, right? Potential is all about our capacity to become, our capacity to evolve. And I really love that word because it really focuses on the latent qualities and attributes that we have that we really have yet to explore. And so for me, potential is such a powerful thing because it really means that we all have the ability to evolve. It's just a matter of creating conditions for them to show up, right? And so there are three key things that I think about, three key questions that I think are important to asking yourself to really lean into that experience. So the first question really is simply, do I have potential?
Yeah.
Like, I know that seems like a silly question, but it's important to pause and really kind of consciously kind of bring yourself to the conscious experience of potential. Most of us, we live our lives, we're busy. There's a lot to activate the conscious process of like developing your potential takes more energy. But by asking that question, do I have potential? It's important because it allows you to really acknowledge where you are in this space. Everything starts with the mind, right? Like our minds are so powerful. And so if you can tap into answering that question first and foremost, you have the foundation to seeing which road you need to take. Now, if you answer that question and say, well, I'm not sure that I have potential. I'm not sure that there are other things. I mean, I've done a lot. I feel like I know myself and I think I know my limits. With that, I challenge you to really think about the narrative, right? Because a lot of this work for me is really thinking about the things we tell ourselves. I mean, think about it, right? You probably have a lot of thoughts. We have so many thoughts. They say we average 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And a lot of those thoughts are actually counterproductive. They say the majority of them are limiting thoughts, things about what we can't do, what we couldn't possibly achieve. And it's happening in our subconscious mind and not our conscious mind. And so with this question, it actually challenges you to bring it to the conscious experience to ask yourself, hey, do I or do I not? And really explore the narrative attached to that. I think this question is really foundational to that process because when you think about it, not only do we have a lot of thoughts, but people share their feedback with us, right? I mean,
Right.
we hear input from people all the time. And as we grow and evolve, sometimes other people's thoughts about our potential become our own.
Yeah.
Maybe someone says, no, you're not really good at math. Sorry, you should try another career path. Or someone says, I don't know that you're a good speaker. Like you're going to need some practice. Saying those things sometimes, if we take on other people's narrative of us, sometimes we can find that we've been holding on to thoughts and beliefs that are limiting us. So I think that question, first and foremost, is so critical to ask to see what's the narrative that I have, and then how do I break through some of those thoughts?
So true. So the first question, let's run through that again. What
Yes.
is your potential?
Yes. Do I have potential?
Do I have potential? Okay.
And hopefully
Okay.
we get to that place of seeing like, yes, in the affirmative, I do, right?
Right.
Now, the second thing you want to think about is, am I willing to step out of the known to the unknown?
Yeah.
That's a scary one, right? But when you think about our potential, and I'm a fan of what's called Johari's window. If you haven't heard about it, it's a great self-development model. And in this model, it really challenges us to think about, we have four windows of our life. One window is what everybody sees. It's the public eye. Like I know what my strengths are. And Nicole, you know what my strengths are because,
Right.
and I know yours. And so it's public and we're clear about that. But we also have another window and it's a blind spot where I don't know things about myself, but perhaps you can see them. And
Yeah.
that's where that potential can be activated because people are able to share with you, wow, I think you're amazing at X. Like you're so great with real estate. You really should lean into that. So hearing those comments from people who can highlight the blind spots that we're not aware of is really, really helpful. But we have to be willing to that question. Am I willing to step out of what is known to myself into the unknown? And there's this other bucket, which are, of course, the things I know about myself that the world doesn't know. But then you have this last final frame, which is this unknown bucket, the things that you, Nicole, don't know about me, and
Right.
the things that I don't know about myself, right? And
Right.
so that's usually where, between that blind spot and that unknown bucket, where we honestly have potential sitting there waiting to be activated, but we just don't know how to access it. And that's why that question of, am I willing to step out of the known, what I know about myself to be true, to actually experience something different?
Yeah.
And in that experience, it allows us to take that journey and uncover some new things about ourselves. So that's the second question.
So can I stop there real quick? And if we're trying to find that out, and you might actually, you probably will explain this in a little bit later, but how can we find that out? Do we ask people, or should we be giving that feedback to other people, or what does that look like?
Oh, that's such a great question. You're absolutely right. I think the one thing you can do is ask people. So I had a client 2 weeks ago who we had this conversation. I challenged her to reach out to 10 people you've interacted with in different avenues. So one family member, one professional. So she kind of found her network and reached out and asked, what do you believe my strengths are? I'm working on professional development. I'm trying to explore, my potential. I'd love to get your perspective. A lot of the feedback she got back, she was aware of, but she actually had 3 or 4 things she never thought of. And
Yeah.
so, to your point, Nicole, I think reaching out and asking others for just their perspective on their strengths or things that you just are unaware of is good information and feedback to hold on to. And so that process of just asking is one thing. But the second part too is also just challenging yourself to have new experiences. So moving, right? So when we change careers, we moved to new communities. When I moved from California to New Hampshire, whoa,
Yeah.
it was a completely new experience. And what I found is those experiences, when you're switching different venues, are great climates and great conditions for you to challenge yourself to step out, because you might be too attached to some previous mental models that you've had where you've gotten really comfortable, right? Things you could do in your sleep, the friends that you've had for a lifetime. When you move to another location, or you have another job or another role, or you're trying something new, something in the brain is activated. It's alerted. It says, hey, this is completely different. But it now creates space for you to step into that. And I think that's why that question, am I willing to step into the unknown, kind of helps you activate and look for those opportunities to try things that you normally wouldn't do.
Well, and I appreciate that comment because as military families, we're doing this every 2 to 3 years, or, within that window of where we're at a new location, then we have to move, pick it up, and then kind of go into the unknown always,
Yeah.
over and over and over again. So I think that this is really important information for us to all kind of just process and digest. So this is
Yeah.
great. Thank you. We're all on board.
No, and it's really great. And I love it's a new opportunity every time. And it doesn't minimize that. It's not easy though, right? It's
Right.
not easy. It takes energy, it takes thought, it takes work to cultivate new communities, new connections. But it is also an opportunity to kind of reinvent every time and take a little further step than you normally would.
Yeah.
And I think that last question in that whole frame to ask ourselves as we pursue this is, do I give myself permission?
Yeah.
Like, do I give myself permission to not be perfect,
Yep.
to not get it right on the first day, to make a mistake, to fall down and get up, to actually be imperfect? And I think that's the part that really helps, the unleash part, right? Like now I have full permission to just be my full authentic self, as messy and as confused and as, unpolished as I am. We're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to
Right.
just enjoy those experiences and see what we can take from them. So,
Well, and the permission piece too, I've heard from other people before, like, I'm giving you the permission to do this. Like, it's almost like we sometimes just have to hear that. We think
yeah.
about it all the time, but somebody's like, I'm giving you the permission. Please, go forth and conquer and do this. So that's, yeah, very powerful
Right. Well,
for
we use
sure.
that with our kids too. I mean, I love that. Like we're all looking for permission. Our kids look to their parents. Your parents look to your parents. Like, we're all looking to be validated, to say, like, is this okay? Is this acceptable? And I think when you're on that journey of discovering your own potential, you kind of have to give that permission to yourself,
Yeah.
to say, it's okay. I don't need anyone else to tell me. I'm gonna do this.
Right.
So
For
yeah.
sure. Well, and you talked about kids. So I know a lot of the spouses here want to know, how can families ensure their little ones thrive and unleash their full potential? And I mean, that could be from the little itty bitties all the way up to teenagers and even beyond teenagers, the empty nesters that have their kids all over the world right now. How can
Yeah.
we look into that?
Yeah, absolutely. Our kids, I feel like all of us, right? So somebody's a child, like we're all a child,
Right.
even here, right? Like we all have this need for connection. And as we think about the current state and the challenges that come with it and the new things we're learning about ourselves, I think some key things when we think about our children to do, I would say there are three key things to really lean into. One is a check-in. I think it's so important. Like, we get busy in life, and I think that's one thing I've appreciated about as of late is I've slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
I've slowed down just a little bit to be a little bit more mindful of, like, how are you? Because our children are actually navigating this new normal with us. And I'm often very curious about their narrative and kind of how they're experiencing the world around them today, because it's so different than what I experienced at their age. But I think check-ins are a really good way to just kind of check in, see how they're doing. What are they thinking about themselves? Like, how are they feeling as they're navigating remote learning or hybrid learning, or some of their friends are remote, but they're not, and vice versa. Because I think you can learn a lot about maybe the internal dialogue that they're starting to develop about themselves, about the world. And even my children, I'll be honest, we've struggled a few times, a few weeks actually, with some remote trying to learn the technology. And it's easy for the children to get down on themselves and say, I guess I'm not cut out for this, I'm not really good at this. And so working with them and checking in on their internal narrative and making sure that they're not limiting themselves just because the circumstances are tough. Let them know that this is unusual and they're doing a great job. So I think checking in and then celebrating,
Yeah.
the small wins, and letting them know, like, wow, you're doing pretty incredible, to say you're juggling 7 classes remotely on your own, and really doing the math homework by yourself without the lecture. Like, you're incredible. I think that positive encouragement is good for the soul. It's oxygen for the soul. I think our little people needed more now than ever. And then the other is community, and just making sure that you can kind of make sure they don't lose the communities that they've had, that they've built, that they've nurtured over the past few years, and make sure that they know they're not alone in this journey. I think those things, and probably a host of great ideas I'm sure all of you guys have,
Yeah.
really make sure that our kids are set up to still continue on their great trajectory.
Yeah, definitely share in the chat box if you guys have any good suggestions, and we'll have Danielle call those out later. But you talked about community,
Yeah.
community with the kids, and because of, it's hard to get out or get out to your community, really, what are you suggesting, like a virtual check-in or, socially distanced check-in? Any suggestions there?
Yeah, well, so we've gotten creative and we've just done some virtual play dates.
Okay.
My little ones, my 5-year-old, I have a friend in Texas, she has a 5-year-old, and they were doing virtual yoga together. We just put YouTube on the screen and they did their yoga. We also have game night. We did Family Feud on PowerPoint and allowing the kids to have a kids round. Really just trying to create channels and opportunities for some of that non-academic connection. They're in the classroom, but how do we still organically create spaces for that? And then just really trying to get outside, being socially distant as much as we can, to make sure they can still connect with the world around them, and create that space. And I know it's challenging, but leaning on technology, and then trying to, I think you're not alone in it. So I found other parents who are trying to do the same. So it's like, hey, why don't we just brainstorm together how to do this instead of us individually struggling to try to figure it out. So
Exactly.
it's been nice to foster that.
Yeah, I love all those ideas. And again, please, everyone, keep sharing in the chat box, and we will touch base on that soon. So you mentioned you worked at Southern New Hampshire University, and as the assistant vice president, I'm going to get this, assistant vice president of talent engagement and inclusion. So how did your career path take you to this university?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think I've always found myself in positions where I could support, coach, empower other people in the projects that they were working on. And so, the course of my professional career, I found myself working in higher education already, working in talent development, and specifically focusing on the onboarding experience and really welcoming people to the organization. And so I found myself in those roles all the time, being the person who welcomes people in, being the person who says, yes, you can be amazing. And how do we find the skills for people to really skyrocket?
Yeah.
But one day I actually got a nudge on LinkedIn from a recruiter who tapped me on the shoulder virtually and said, hey, have you heard about SNHU? Would you be interested? And I was surprised that recruiters were reaching out that way. This was years ago.
Yeah.
But then I'll tell you, I first said, where's New Hampshire? No, I didn't. I was like, "Hey, move to New Hampshire. But I actually had, talk about potential. I thought there's no way my husband would relocate. There's no way that we could uproot our family. There's no way we would be able to survive without having our community. And so I actually told the recruiter, oh, no, thank you. But here are 3 names of people that I think you could, talk to. And I went and talked to my husband and he said, Shanita, like, that sounds like an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
Why are we not open to it? And so it was another like moment for me to think of like, why am I limiting myself? I literally just assumed my husband wouldn't want to move and
Yeah.
we were rooted in the church. We had all these things going on. And he was like, we can always come back if it doesn't work out. I was like, really? So I called the recruiter back and said, don't call those 3 people.
Right.
Let's talk. And long story short, here I am 6 years later, really, focused on the employee experience, which has been an incredible, incredible opportunity for me.
I love it. When it's kind of like he gave you permission to be like, this is okay, like, let's do it. And good for him for, saying yes, like, that's awesome. So
I know I
I
give him all the credit. I
yeah,
say, in everything we do, he's actually my nudger. I'll be honest, like every career change or organizational change, he's been the person to say, like, if I'm like, maybe I won't apply, he's like, what do you mean?
right.
So I think it's so important to have people like that who, when your doubt creeps in, because it does,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know if I'm able to. And they say, statistics say like women typically doubt themselves when it comes to a job description. We feel like we have to meet everything and exceed it before we apply. And so I was like, well, I don't meet that bullet. I don't know. And so it's just really been great to have a community of support from my husband to say, let's lean into your full potential and let's give it a shot. And if worst case scenario, you'll learn something and then we'll go back to what you used to do. So that he gets all the
Yes.
credit.
I love that. And I love that you also shared in a job description, you don't need to check every box. If it's something that you're interested in,
Yes.
apply,
Yes.
yeah, you can do it. We give you permission.
We give and I think it's in, from a hiring manager perspective too, it's like they're also looking for potential. It's like we can teach you anything on a job description, but we're
Right.
looking, do you have the willingness to step out and learn something new? Like all these principles still come into play. And we're just looking for really great people who are passionate, willing to learn. And so I love how you said it. We give you permission to
Yes.
apply, even if you only meet a few bullets. Let the recruiter tell you you don't.
Exactly. Yeah, because you all have a story to tell, so absolutely. So,
Yes.
with Southern New Hampshire University, how can military families take advantage of the educational opportunities there at that university?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a fantastic military support team, and they will walk you through from start to finish, the admission process, exploring kind of what you'd like to do and finding the right fit for you from a programmatic standpoint. I think as we're all trying to pursue education, I think for me, one of the critical things to do was to really get clear and kind of pause and go, this is for me, right? Like this is one of those selfish acts that you rarely get is like to invest in yourself because we're quite honest, I'm always pouring into, we have our children and they need us. So we're always focusing our energy on other people and a degree program is really it's really about you. And so I think take that selfish time, that important time to say, what is it that I want? And what do I want to get out of this from a program or from an institution? So
Right.
that when you start that discovery process, you find the right fit for you, so that you can get what you need. We got to fill our cups up too, guys. Uh,
Absolutely.
we're always pouring it out and helping others. So
When I found through taking classes, it's another great way to build lasting friendships, lifelong friendships. So it's just another way to connect, and you're using your mind, and it's just a win-win. So something to think about.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so speaking of education,
Yeah.
you have your doctorate, and that's another thing where a lot of military spouses yeah, loved. I feel as though military spouses get their degrees and then they look for employment, and sometimes it can be a struggle, or a lot of the times it can be a struggle. So they pursue another degree and another degree. So
Mm,
um, what led you to get your doctorate? If you
yeah.
can share that story.
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. I'll be honest with all of you. I never thought I'd get it. I honestly didn't even know that I would get my bachelor's degree. No one in my family had gone to college. I am a first generation college student who in high school didn't believe that I would have the financial means to go to school or that I was academically strong enough to perform at the collegiate level. And then I had a coach who actually nudged me, and that propelled me from my bachelor's to my master's. But when it came to the doctorate, I got intimidated, and I made a phone call just to get information. That's what I said. I'm just getting information. And I had asked, what are the requirements? And the gentleman walked me through the requirements, and I met every single one of them. But guess what I said? I said to this man, oh, people like me don't get doctorates. And I couldn't see his face. He was on the phone, but I can only imagine what his face looked like because he said, excuse me?
Right.
He's like, what do you mean, people like you? And again, more insight into my own internal narrative about myself, about how I was in that moment going to once again limit myself from fully stepping into this. And he said, well, let me read the program requirements again. And he read them. He said, and do you meet those? I said, yes. And he said, okay, so remind me again why people like you don't. And so I appreciated that honest feedback. I mean, he challenged me in that moment to think about the internal narrative. And I signed up because I was like, I'm no chicken. I'm going to try it. And it took me a few years with the little ones, but made it through. And quite honestly, I feel like the education process in general is like, it really just helps hone and build your confidence as an individual. Like, yes, I learned a lot. I have a lot of content knowledge and papers I had to write, but it really helped prove to me that I can do anything I put my mind to and to stop limiting myself. And my kids actually were on the boppy. My son was 8 months old. He's like on the boppy. I'm at the computer. My arms are up like this because I'm trying to type with him on the boppy. Went through the program 3 kids later, and my kids got to see that whole process. So for me, it turned out to be something for me, but then something for my children to just see and witness. So
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I know that can just be an inspiration to so many other people out there just thinking, can I do this? Am I capable of doing this? So yeah, thank you very much for that. Well, and I wanted to check in because I see this chat box over here and it is on fire. So Danielle, I want to check in with you. What are we hearing, or what's going on in the chat box? And are there any questions that Dr. Williams can answer for us?
On fire is correct. So you are 1000% resonating with our audience. We've got some fantastic connections and just really talking about what you're saying and how those things can be challenging. But one thing you shared, I think, did stand out to someone, kind of going back to what you shared about that recruiter reaching out to you on LinkedIn. Someone is just wondering, what was it, something in particular in the work that you had done that really caught that person's eye? That's the reason why they reached out to you. What do you think it was? And so I'm sure this is also in the vein of just people thinking about their own, LinkedIn methods, professional development. So I'll just throw that one to you. Thanks so much.
yeah, that's a great, when I think about, I do not work for LinkedIn, but I am a LinkedIn fan because really it's all about connections. And I think it's about really curating your profile as well to articulate those skills that usually don't get seen on a standard resume. And so I know the recruiters were looking up keyword searches. So being very thoughtful about like, what is the industry you want to get into, or what are the key skills that you have, and making sure that that is up to date on your LinkedIn profile is so important. I teach a career prep course, and literally the final for my students, they actually have to put together a LinkedIn profile, because it really is the key to helping you reach across barriers and find people that would have never found you. And so when I spoke to the recruiter, a big part of it was definitely my experience. Sometimes on your LinkedIn profile, I noticed some people will just put their job title, but not what they did and what your accomplishments were. So slowing down to put those things in there takes time, but really helps you stand out as they're feverishly looking for talent. So leaning into your LinkedIn profile can be great, and making sure you have recommendations, which I know can be hard to ask for. Asking for recommendations, and women, we're so humble, and it's like, oh no, I don't need a recommendation. Ask for them, reach out in your LinkedIn profile, and those will help add to the narrative of who you are and hopefully help communicate the potential that you have within those organizations. So if you haven't had a chance to lean into that, I would definitely encourage you to brush up that LinkedIn profile and see what opportunities might lie ahead. That was a great question.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
That was the only question we had right now. Thank you, ladies.
Perfect. All right. Well, we have more, because we could be here all day, because I have all the questions in the world. And one of them, to be quite honest, I selfishly want to ask this because you have a book coming or launching soon, publishing soon, called Feedback Mentality. So can you tell us what inspired you to just say, I'm going to write a book, and how did you hone in on, and this is what it's going to be about, and these are the steps I'm going to take to get it done. So I'll just leave you with that. It's kind of a big one.
Yeah. So almost like education, I haven't always dreamed of writing a book. It actually just kind of happened as I just found myself being interested and curious. And I didn't consider myself a writer, but someone started to nudge me. They said, hey, you speak about these things. Have you thought about writing about them? So I started writing small articles. Those articles started to collect. And then the idea came out of nowhere of like, can I write a book?
Yeah.
I don't know. People like me don't write a book. Here goes that thought again. Oh, I don't know, can I? But you know what? We all have so many amazing stories out there. And there's no criteria for we don't all have to be Brene Brown and Oprah Winfrey and all these they're amazing, and I revere them and I respect them, but they're human beings just like us. So finally, I got the confidence to say, I know my words are not going to be perfect, but they're mine. And I think I said to myself, no one will listen to me. And then I said, well, you're right, Shanita, no one's going to listen to you if you don't write and put it out there. Right. So I finally just pulled it together. It actually took 3 years to culminate. And it is coming out. It is on pre-sale now, but it will be available to actually hold in your hands on November 25th, which is an insane idea. I still am kind of in awe that has all happened, but I honed in on that topic, feedback, because if you probably couldn't tell, I give myself a lot of feedback. And I knew that was something that we didn't talk a lot about. We talked a lot about how to like formally give feedback at meetings and performance reviews, but we never really talk about our internal narrative and how that could be stopping us. So that is one of the chapters in my book. And I thought, if you have a feedback mentality, which is a healthy, mentally strong approach to feedback, then you really can unlock your potential, because you'll know what to hold on to and what to really just learn from and let go. So I'm excited for it to be out.
So exciting. And it's exciting to share these types of wins in this year, because we all need wins, and so as we're talking about wins, I also want to call out to the people listening right now. Share a win that you've had in the past couple weeks, months, even this year, so that we can all celebrate. It's been a tough one, but like Dr. Williams writing a book, how cool is that? So definitely a win for 2020. So please, everyone, share a win so we can all celebrate you. Yes. And again, I'll have Danielle call you out in a little bit. So we also, in the military spouse world, are always talking about finding a mentor and what that looks like. So it sounds like you've had some really great mentors kind of leading you throughout your life. So how have you, I mean, I guess, how did you find them, or did it just
Yeah.
kind of happen, or who's your mentor now? Go into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mentorship is so important. As you think about, I mean, I think about we walk through the world with just our own lived experience, and the beauty of a mentor is that they're able to share their experience and their wisdom with you that helps accelerate kind of like your trajectory. And so I've kind of had two approaches to mentors. I've had some organic mentors who just showed up. I paid attention to the people who like my coaches. It started with coaches who just wanted to, I would stay late, ask more questions. And the more I asked questions, the more they leaned in. And I said, hey, they're willing to share their expertise. I'm going to keep asking questions.
Yeah.
And so I found them there. And then I found them also academically, you know, again, taking advantage of, you know, the Q&A times and following up with people and just saying, hey, thank you for answering my question. And then we just kind of organically developed a relationship because they said, hey, anytime, if you need anything, if you say anytime to me, I'm going to follow up with you.
Right, right.
If they say anytime you need anything, let me know. And that to me is an invitation to truly, you know, leverage their wisdom. But I've also formally requested mentors. I've seen people that I thought were insanely incredible, who I admired, who I'd love to be in their shoes. I actually have a few mentors, actually.
Okay.
And I have one mentor in particular that I wanted to learn strategy from because he's actually a military veteran. His strategic thinking is amazing. So I actually approached him and said, hey, I need a mentor. Here's a gap I believe I have in my leadership. I'd love to learn from you. And it's amazing when you ask someone to be their mentor, they're honored. They're like, you
Yes.
like, really, you want me? And so we've had a great relationship, and me just learning from him and a host of other mentors that I can text quickly and say, hey, I'm applying for a new job. Can I run this by you to see if this sounds right? Because I've never done it before, but I think I
Right.
can do it. And so just having a host of what I tell my students, I ask them to get your career board of directors, having people in different facets of the things that you enjoy kind of share their experiences with you, and just benefit from all of that collective intelligence. So formally request them. I've actually requested on LinkedIn too, believe it or not. I sent out, I read some profiles. I
Yeah.
was impressed. And I sent out a few requests for mentors. One person replied, and he's been mentoring me in a specific facet online as well. So it doesn't hurt to ask.
I love that. And I've never assigned homework on a Coffee Connection Live before, but you guys, we're going to assign some homework. Go out and find a mentor on LinkedIn. How cool is that? I love
Yes.
that. So we want to hear the success stories of where, you know, how you were connected and how that all worked out after the fact. That's so cool. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So talking about friends, and we talked about kind of moving to new locations,
Yeah.
and this one's kind of deep. So
Yeah.
we all have our friend circle, and we all seem to kind of stick or make friends with similar interests. So
Mhm.
how important is it to kind of go beyond that and find friends or make friends that maybe you might have not been, you don't have a lot in common? I mean, is that important, or is it important just to kind of stay within the interests of, similar interests with friends? If that question makes sense.
Oh, it makes
Okay,
perfect sense.
good.
And it's a question that I think we grapple with every day. I think it's human nature, right? As humans, we have this what we call affinity bias. Things that we like. So even if you go to a restaurant, like I'm going to try the thing that I know I like, or the thing
Mhm.
that I know what the experience is going to be like, and I don't want to, get let down. So I'm going to go with what I know. And that is absolutely normal. When I think about friendships too, you kind of get you kind of have a certain type, right? Of what experiences they've had. You probably all grew up in the same town, had the same, right? And so that is important. I think having things in common with people is so critical, especially though when you move and relocate, you're going to naturally look for those things. Hey, who
Yeah.
are the people who have, the second I tell somebody I'm from the West Coast, when I hear somebody say, "Oh, I'm from here," I'm like, oh, "So am I." Like automatically, I'm like, "You're my bestie," because we
Right.
come from the same area. But I think there is something to be said about really challenging yourself to surround yourself with diverse perspectives. people who have lived experiences that don't look like yours. Because when it comes to kind of our point about potential, they've had some experiences with things you probably have not, or your standard core group of friends. You guys have probably already had the same experiences. So having people who have tried different things, who come from different geographic locations, can help you really kind of round out potential opportunities from a career standpoint, from a development standpoint, or just from a life standpoint, because they've had so many various life experiences to add to you. So I would challenge you to definitely find people who you have things in common with, but sit down and listen and see if you can cultivate a relationship with someone who, you don't necessarily immediately have that affinity bias for. And you'll find that, I think, through it all, you'll still have some things that are in common.
I love that. So
Yeah.
important. More homework.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be very busy after this. Oh, and I want to pause there because I see again the chat box. There's a lot going on. So Danielle, wanted to check in with you. Is there anything that you can address with us, or should we keep going?
Yeah, we actually have a big win to call out. Diana shared that she completed 75 hard. And so everyone's intrigued
Tell us
about
more.
what that is. So we're talking more about it. She's sharing, I don't know if you know about it, Dr. Williams, you're nodding your head. She's sharing no alcohol, 10 pages nonfiction physical reading, 2 45-minute workouts a day, 1 gallon of water, and no cheat meals for 75 days straight. So Diana, we're all impressed, giving you a round of applause, virtual high fives.
Yes.
And I think you're inspiring others. So thanks for sharing that big win. And then also Wanda shared that she's an avid reader and was hired to edit a book. She never thought she'd be able to do that, and she did. So that's another incredible big win. So thank you so much, Diana and Wanda, for sharing those. And we'll continue to keep an eye on the chat. But yes, that's what's going on. And we also have a little bit of discussion about where to find a mentor. People really honed in on when you shared that, Dr. Williams. So we do have one question that came in on any recommendations on how to find a formal mentor. I know you did mention LinkedIn. Someone in the chat shared Veterati, but if you have anything else to share, we're all ears for that.
Yeah, I think some other places I look for mentors. I look in my actual organization, and those individuals that I admire, that I watch on either leadership panels or things of that nature. I actually went to I was a moderator for an event, and the speaker was amazing. I followed up with her and sent her an email and said, "Oh my gosh, you inspire me. Let's talk about a formal mentorship." And then also I think alumni networks. If I actually just reached out and signed up personally to be a mentor for my alumni, for my alma mater. And you can, if you've, attended college, you can tap into those alumni networks. So I think anywhere where you see someone that you go, I want to learn more. I think developing a relationship and starting that communication is great. And then you can kind of see if there's an appetite or affinity for some formal opportunities. And I love it when people just say, hey, I want to learn from you. Maybe you don't call it a formal mentor. You can just say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain and learn more from you. Can we do a coffee chat once a month, or and those work just as well. So
I love that. Cool. Well, I'm going to keep going into my questions, Danielle. So I wanted to talk about a lot of military spouses are going into, new jobs, again, with the whole moving thing, going into a new career, or even starting a job or a new career for the first time. So it can be awkward, even in person or virtually, because some spouses are having to meet their teammates in a virtual setting. But what's a good icebreaker question for people to just kind of break the ice with their colleagues and their new teammates?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. And there's probably a ton. I'd love to hear from everyone too. What's your icebreaker question? I think, there's something to be said about just simply asking, what's your name? Tell me a little bit about where you're from and how long have you been working here? That usually gives you a good enough start to be able to learn a little bit about their journey, and you can lean in and ask a few more questions. I think demonstrating curiosity in those initial meetings is really, really helpful, because you give them the space to kind of share. It takes the pressure off of you too, because you can just ask the
Exactly.
questions, but really lean in and just be curious. I don't know how many times, I've been in meetings or encounters with new people, and we just jump right into business, and you're like, I didn't meet anyone. I learned what the project is all about, but I am uncomfortable because we didn't know who was in the room. So taking time to just simply ask, what's your name? Where are you from? How long have you been working here? And any tips, I would say too, because you're a newbie, you give yourself full permission. Here goes permission again.
Yeah.
Full permission to say, I'm new here. Any tips on how to navigate the organization, or any suggestions on how I might build a strong community? Or I think anytime you can ask and be curious and ask for tips, I think people usually lean into it because they've been in your shoes as well. We've all been a new employee at some point. And so people are usually looking forward to trying to pay it forward and help. So feel free to ask any tips or suggestions on how I might, quickly learn how to navigate the organization. And people are more than happy to share the ins and outs. So
Yeah.
hopefully,
I
yeah.
definitely 100% agree. And I feel like you were in my mind when you were saying you ask them where they're from and, how long they've been there or what they do, because people love to talk about themselves too. Because, if you've been working with the same team for a while, everybody knows everybody. So
Yes.
they're not asking those questions anymore. But when you're the new person asking them, people will be more than happy to share. I believe.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it also does, to your point, I think that happiness of sharing comes from feeling seen too.
Yeah.
We all want to, we walk into these rooms, these virtual rooms, and we just log in, and but feeling seen is a powerful feeling. When someone is curious about who you are as an individual and they can see you out of a sea of people. I don't know about you guys, but when people ask or remember even, oh,
Right.
like, oh, you've been here 5 years, they're like, you still remember that? Like, you really listen. So I think it's a great way to develop really strong relationships and long lasting connections by just taking the time to ask some of those personal kind of questions about their journey and what they've learned too. So,
So true and so
yeah.
powerful. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a common theme through our Coffee Connection lives. We've heard from so many guest speakers that throughout this time and any time really, you should be taking time for yourself. At
Mm.
least 15 days, I wish, 15 minutes a day for yourself or
Yeah.
more if you can break away and just focus on you. So what are
Yeah.
you doing? What tips do you have so that you're focusing on yourself 15
Yeah.
minutes a day or so?
Yeah. So, it's so funny. 15 minutes, you know, we have so many responsibilities. Carving that time out is
Yeah.
so important. And I've tried to keep it simple because I think sometimes I stress myself out about my 15 minutes has to be impactful and so magical. And so it's like, no, it could actually just be a walk.
Yes.
I
Yes.
get out of my house and literally walk my block. In New England right now, the foliage is just beautiful. So I'm just taking in the sights. I like to listen to music as well, so I can get 3 or 4 good songs in and just kind of pick my energy up if I need. And sometimes it's just complete solitude.
Yeah.
And honestly, watching my kids outside, and I can just sit. They're old enough to kind of be in the front, but I can take in the sights, and I enjoy watching them kind of come to their own and navigate the world. So just sitting there and just watching them interact is for me kind of my woo-saw.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of keep it simple because I am on the go, 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 go. I try not to make it overly stressful event of like, okay, I have to make sure that in these 15 minutes I get the following accomplished. And I really just take that time to breathe and refuel because
Yeah.
again, we use so much energy all day, and it really is just time to like connect with myself.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree. I mean, it can be tough to get those 15 minutes to go outside, put your shoes on, go outside and walk, but
yes,
yeah, just focus on you and the music. Yes, I
yes,
absolutely can wholeheartedly agree to that.
yeah.
So we're almost at time. So I'm going to ask a couple questions that some of the spouses that registered for this were asking. So one of the questions that came through from one of the spouses said, how do you get unstuck when you have felt unmotivated for a while?
Mm-hmm. So that happens. And if it does, don't make any judgment about yourself about it at all. I think that's the first thing. It's like, it's okay to find, the ebbs and flows of life. Like, we don't always have to be high, perfect, killing it. Life is great, super motivated all the time. The reality is we're interacting with the world, we're having different experiences. And sometimes we come to a low for a variety of reasons. So one, I would just say, acknowledge it, lean into it too. I think in that, Taylor, what is her name? I can't remember her last name. Essence Magazine editor, can't remember. Anyhow, she said, listen to the pain. She said, you ask pain, what have you come to teach me? And while, find the lull isn't pain, I still like that philosophy of like, I'm feeling this way. Why? Like, what have you come to teach me? Am I feeling unmotivated because I'm no longer interested in something? Am I feeling unmotivated because I've overexerted myself? I have too many things going on.
Yeah.
Am I feeling unmotivated, about either my self-esteem, my self-concept? Am I feeling unmotivated because this project just feels so big and I don't know a way out of it? So I think, leaning in and asking, well, what has this moment come to teach me? What can I learn from this feeling today? And I like to connect it to a source and say, so where is it coming from? And I think when you do that, you put yourself back in the driver's seat to figure out what lever you need to pull, right? To kind of get back to where you want to be. But I also try not to rush myself through that process either. So I think we're so, and I'll speak for myself. I have a tendency to be like, Shanita, you got to be on, you got to be, you got to be perfect. You got to be on. No one can see you down. You're always the positive person. You're the person that everybody comes to. So you can't be down.
Right.
I don't have permission to be down. Everyone else does. And I'm learning to say to myself, like, you have permission to sit quietly. You have permission to say, today, I don't wanna. That's okay. And now watch the timing of that, because you don't want it to go too long to the point where it spins you into a direction you don't want to. But I think it's okay to sit in it for a little bit. But ask yourself the questions to help you kind of move to the next level. And for me, a lot of times it's the planning. I give myself some time and I go, all right, like, what's the source? Now what's the plan? And that's kind of how I get myself out of it.
I love that. So good. Okay, another question coming through let's see here. We have, what are the different ways an individual's potential is hampered and how do you overcome it?
That's an excellent question. I think one big reason why I'll give you two. One is fear. Our potential can be hampered simply because of fear. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about the fear of the unknown. We feel so comfortable with our same friends, with our same location, with our same job, with our same, everything's the same. Stepping out of that means we have to learn something new. And that fear of failure, I think, is really what can keep us from that, because I always say perfection and courage can't live in the same place. You got to be brave and you got to be willing to make mistakes. But sometimes we hold ourselves to a standard of perfection, of getting things right and doing it extremely well, that keeps us from stepping into that. So I think that fear is one thing that can hold us back. But I also think it's the narrative that we either take from other people or that we give ourselves. So I would say lean into your fear, because there's a quote that says, everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. If we can work through that, the potential is right there. But we got to start here and do that work. So it's all a mental game.
Yep. So good. Okay. And then this is a fun question coming from a military spouse. It says, what is your favorite planner?
Oh, my favorite planner.
Yeah.
Well, so to stay organized, I honestly, it's not really exciting. It is Outlook. I schedule everything. I schedule, my time for myself. I literally have my walks scheduled on my calendar so that no one during the workday can schedule. Like, I need that time. I need my lunch time. And so my book time was after hours. I wasn't working on it during my normal workday. So I have it on my calendar, and literally my husband laughed because I was like, I think I need to schedule our date nights on my Outlook calendar too, because if it's on my Outlook calendar, it's going to happen.
Right. Yes.
If it's not on my Outlook calendar, it just, right? Like we have
Yes.
so much that we're trying to juggle. I can't remember everywhere I need to be. So I don't know what other ideas you guys have for planners, but that Outlook has been a saving grace for me. It's in sync with my phone and my Apple Watch, to keep me, like, nudge me all day about, hey, you have a meeting in 15 minutes, you have this, just so that I could to try to stay on top of everything.
I love
So
that. Perfect. Well, that was an excellent way to kind of sum up all of our questions. I wanted to check in with Danielle just to make sure are there any other questions out there before we end this?
No more questions, just some more chat about favorite planners and such. So
Oh,
thank
good.
you so much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Williams, so much for your time this morning. I know what we like to do for Coffee Connection Live is we get our USO mug and we want the spouses and everybody that's joining us right now to take a selfie and use the hashtag USOCC Live. And I'll stop to take our smile real quick. Here you go. Awesome. So cheesy, but so fun. And we appreciate you spending the time with us and just sharing everything that you know and that you're subject matter expert at. And just, I know that we're going to leave this with, we're going to unlock and unleash our potential, the next couple of weeks, and you have a book coming out. So congratulations with that. And we wish you the most success with all of that. And just thank you. We appreciate you and hope you all stay happy and healthy. And thanks to all the military spouses that are joining us. Any last words from your side, Dr. Williams?
Just, I would leave you with, limitless is your potential. Magnificent is your future. Lean into it, guys. You are amazing. And I can't wait to hear all the wonderful stories. So thank you for the time.
So good. So good. Thank you for that. And for other upcoming events, make sure to check out our website at uso.org/MVP. Or if you're not in our military spouse Facebook group, please join that as well. It has all the up-to-date upcoming events. And we look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.